to another episode of the Tagtalk podcast, the podcast that has been sweeping the LQ community by storm as of late. It's got everybody talking. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently here today. Obviously, you can hear that I'm doing the introduction. So just to give you a quick background, my name's Excalibur, the truth. But today I'm going to be conducting the podcast just as Adam. So none of the chip on my shoulder or the bravado or any of the images that I try and portray. Just going to be Adam. I'm just going to be a dude who's interviewing a gentleman that has long deserved to be interviewed for this. So I'm honored to actually be the person who gets to conduct this interview with you, Alex. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you. Really cool to be on my own show. Or it's pretty much our own show. Like I feel that you, myself, Louis, we kind of like started this together with the first episode. And yeah, very excited to talk about my unique perspective about Laser Quest for sure.
For sure. And I think that one of the things that a lot of people need to realize is you really do have a unique perspective. But before we did that, I wanted to say, a quick thank you to Alex, basically for what you've been doing for all of this effort and everything that you've been putting into this. Not just these podcasts, but what you've been doing to keep kind of the LQ community alive in Canada and Montreal. I really hope personally that I can do the podcast some justice. I got some big shoes to fill, but I really do feel like you deserved a chance to tell your story, and that the whole LQ community would really like to hear some of the things that you had to say. Basically, your journey as like an elite player, a company man, a historian, and a head full of statistics, like a guy who's really into statistics. You really have an understanding of the game, from all different aspects, perhaps more than just about any other player out there. So I want to start off by saying, and honestly, I probably don't do this type of stuff enough, but the massive amount of respect that I have for you over our careers. I say this as a peer, not just because of the player you are, but because of the person that you are. I've known you since 1999, so it's been 21 years now, and I've known you in a competitive environment, and I've never seen you personally to be anything but a class act. And in a game that's full of losers and sore sports, you kind of always stood above everybody else, and I've always admired that. You're better. You were better. You are better, and respected more. I respect you more than you'll ever know. So I'm really happy to. I kind of wrote that down, so it looked like I was reading that. It was because I just wanted to get all my points across. But yeah, so we're gonna follow the journey of Alex's kind of career through the LQ world, if you will. We'll start off. We're gonna try and follow the usual agenda that you follow. I sent you some of the stuff, and then I tweaked it a little bit so that there's some stuff that you don't know that's coming as well.
Yeah.
But let's start off with an introduction.
Get a taste of my own medicine.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea, right? Gonna hit you with some hard hitting questions, and no, I'm just kidding. It'll be a fun podcast. Hopefully, we can keep the the time frame to something that's reasonable. But
we'll see. 4 hours. Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll see. So, start off. Let's give me an introduction. So, how did you get into Laser Quest? What was your first experience with it?
So the first game of Laser Quest I've ever played. I was 15. It was in, I believe, 1997 during the summer. So just randomly out of the blue, my mom heard about Laser Quest and brought me there like one afternoon. And I was really into like video games and like virtual reality. We had already like a virtual reality kind of theme park downtown Montreal. So I was like going over there. I was really bad at it, and it was not like the coolest thing ever. But yeah, Laser Quest right off the bat, I was hooked because I was not a social person at all, and I was like this very like super awkward teenager. So just the fact that I was like like getting out there, like interacting with other nerds and like with like other people,
for sure.
like really did it for me. Yeah,
that's good, and I think that provided that for a lot of people, that's kind of what LQ was. LQ was just it became a a social outlet. I talked about it on my podcast
Yes.
as well, but it was really for me personally. Some of my closest friends came from Laser Quest. So
Yep.
you played your first game of laser tag sometime in 1997. I assume it was in the Montreal Center,
Yes.
same location right there, the
Yep.
the awesome location on St. Catherine Street.
Yes. Exactly.
Yep.
Between two strip clubs. Yeah.
That's Montreal
Oh
for
my
you,
God.
man. That's Montreal for you.
It is. It is, and it's awesome. So through years and years that we're gonna get to that, but I worked there, and like no one ever batted an eye that it was located next to a strip club and like downtown. It was just
Yeah.
Montreal things. It was just part of the norm here.
That
But yeah, I remember. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's one of the things that I always thought was so cool about it was, from a corporate standpoint, at least Montreal Center has always been a fairly busy one, and it's just,
Yes.
I mean, there's no parking, it's right downtown. Like think of downtown Dallas, downtown, Phoenix, any of those major cities, pick a major street on it, and in Montreal, Laser Quest is right on St. Catherine Street, like where there's nowhere to park and stuff like that. So it's a very cool location
Very unique.
in that manner.
Yeah.
So you're
So first game of Laser Quest, yeah, 1997, 15 years old. I came in third place. And it's like, like I was on top of the world. I was like, holy
You
shit,
were
I'm so
hooked.
good at this.
You were hooked right
Yeah,
off the bat,
exactly.
right? Okay.
And then I proceeded so that we only played one game because I think they had some exclusive or something like that, so I couldn't like really play. But instantly I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And then I remember I went back and back in 1997, Laser Quest Montreal was so busy. There was literally a lineup outside.
Wow.
It was insane. But for some reason, the second time I went, nobody was there. It was me, my cousin, and we had to play against two marshals who obviously were not like NAC material, like tournament material, but they kicked my ass. I got fourth place.
Yeah, of course. Fourth out of four?
Fourth out of four. Yeah, my cousin beat me. He still holds that, holds my head.
I don't think that would happen nowadays, though.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
But yeah, but even though like I got first place, I was like still like just the passion for the game itself, and it was something new, something high tech, and something physical.
Yeah.
It was still enough to like keep me going and keep me coming back.
Very nice. So your first game's in 1997. You get third place in it. What was the code name? What was the initial code name that you started playing with?
Oh my God. Okay, so
I remember mine.
Fuck. It's either why me ?
Okay.
Or so I was really into Final Fantasy, and there was this class that you can play in Final Fantasy IV, I think, which was a dragoon, so dragon but with like an extra O. So it might have been dragoon or something fucking like terribly nerdy like this. That was my code name.
When did Elven come? When did that become your alter ego, if you will?
Not too long after, because I was starting to play Dungeons and Dragons as well, as nerds do. And then like my first character was an elf, so Elven, like it's kind of something that I thought I made up because the correct adjective, like if you play Dungeons and Dragons, is supposed to be like elvish or something like that. So I wanted to be something that like I made up myself. Plus, making up code names in Montreal is this weird dynamic because our first language is mostly French.
Yep.
So you kind of make up something, you kind of translate something or make up something in English because that's the cool thing to do. But sometimes it doesn't really translate. You know what I mean? Like
I do. Like I do.
Weird code names along the years.
So has it always been Elven? Did you ever tamper with anything else, or was it just always Elven?
No, that was pretty much it. Like I would do variations. I remember at some point when I started playing members from outside of the center, I saw like Corwin, Decoy, Bad Andy would write quotes, like between quotation marks. So I was like, oh yeah, I want to be cool like those guys. So I started writing my code name like quotation marks. I was like, I'm part of that club.
Right on. Okay, so at one point in time we had Elven with quotes. All right, I got it. All right, cool. So it's 1997. You're 15 years old. You're hooked on laser tag. How often were you playing at that point in time? Was it a weekly thing? Was it a monthly thing? Like how long did it take you to get the bug, if you will?
So 1997, I would have been 15. So I was still working pretty close to full time and going to school at the same time. My family was not the richest, so I kind of needed to like provide for myself. So I didn't have that much time. A little bit, I'd say maybe 98 or end of 98.
Okay.
I started like making a little bit more money at my work and having a little bit more free time. And just the fact also that I was 16, my parents were giving me a little bit more freedom.
Hmm.
So then it started to be a weekly basis. I would go like basically pretty much every Friday night,
Okay.
every Saturday night, and Sundays where when I could as well.
So you're okay. So you were going in 3 days a week. You were
Yes.
getting a lot of game time in, right? So
Yep.
tell me about what was your first experience with, I guess, competitive. So when was the first time that you bumped into, another player that was going regularly, or another player that, because I assume when you start going, 3 days a week and stuff like that, you obviously, you said you started off and you got third place in your first game. So
Yes.
you obviously had a grasp on it. You were obviously pretty good. You're better than the average person. When was the first time that you went in and ran into some people and you were like, holy cow, like, these guys also know what they're doing?
So there was this guy that was called Hitman, and I think he only ever played like one. Yeah,
I
yeah,
know,
you know
actually,
him, Mike.
I know
Yeah,
that guy well, Mike. I know,
yeah, yeah.
oh my God, man. Holy cow. All
From
right.
forever ago, Jesus. So he was it, right?
Yeah.
So back in the days, so LaserQuest Montreal had a tournament scene very specific to LaserQuest Montreal
Mhm.
because we also had a center in Brossard, which was maybe like 20 minutes drive away.
Mhm.
So before I even started playing, I think like 95, 94, 96, there was two teams, one from Brossard, one from Montreal, and they would play against one another.
Cool.
This all ended though before my time, before I actually started playing. So there was not very really like competitive members. It was just Hitman who would like come all the time and like like beat up on everybody.
Mhm.
And then when I was going with like my high school friends, and then
Yeah.
when I remember thinking when I beat Hitman, I was like, that's it. I've done it all in Laser Quest. There is no better player, so there is nothing left to achieve. And I
You
remember
knocked
saying this.
you knocked
Yeah,
Hitman off the list. Yep. Okay.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, so there's I beat this guy. There's nothing else to achieve in Laser Quest. I can move on and be on my merry way, right? But then what happened is there is this player called Crush. I don't know if you remember him.
He was the pro
Uh,
wrestler, right? He was a
he
pro
was,
wrestler. Okay.
yeah,
Yep. I remember
super
Crush
big dude.
very well. Very well. Nice guy. Real nice guy.
Yeah, it was cool. So he was part of that old competitive scene between like Montreal and Brossard,
Mhm.
and he heard that some players were, like we're starting to have a decent member base, and some players were getting competitive. So he came back. He staged a comeback, and I remember he came for one of the all nighters, and he scored something like 3,600 points,
Wow.
like in an Ironman.
Yep.
And to me, it was like holy shit! Like I had never seen like such a high score.
Yeah. This is the ultimate boss.
Exactly. So I was
Yep.
like, holy shit, I must like I must defeat this guy. But that was pretty much my first run into like with skilled players.
Mhm.
And also he wanted to build the teams for regionals in '99. So
Okay.
as early as I think it was late '98, Brampton was having an all nighter, like a mixer, like a fundraiser,
Okay.
and he actually attended. So this was the first time that I was hearing about like, oh, there are actually other like good players
Yep.
from other centers. I remember him coming back and he was like, oh, there's this guy Decoy that's really good, and probably I remember him telling me their second best player is probably this guy called Muhaha.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Okay.
remember
Yeah.
that guy. Yeah,
Yeah. I
he was
remember him. Yeah.
like
Of course.
he was like he's probably their second best player and stuff, and yeah, he kind of maybe I had it wrong there, but this was my first like awakening to like there are other players like on other
Yeah.
centers that are really good.
Okay. All right. Cool. So you start playing like the lock-ins and stuff like that.
Yes.
You're playing Crush is your first experience with that. When do you
Yeah.
start going? Did you start going to members nights?
We didn't really have members nights, to
Okay.
be honest.
Really?
No, it was more like I think the concept of it was present, but the general manager that we had was a girl that was called Anne Silver, I think, and she was trained by David. David Piaya actually used to be the general manager for Laser Quest Montreal.
Oh, I'm
So
aware. Yeah, I'm aware of him.
yeah, sorry, I always had a good relationship with David Piaya, working relationship. We'll put it this way. Uh, and that's all I'm going to say about that. What I do want to say though is Anne Silver hated members. She did not
Oh, okay.
enjoy our presence. We were kind of like hellraisers too, and we were stupid. We were young and stupid too.
Hmm.
So part of the responsibility was ours. But instead of trying to work with us, she would just like like bump us, like not have us play games,
Hmm.
all that bullshit.
Yep.
And obviously her manager I think a girl called Tara. Um, yeah, her manager was like exact same mentality. She did
Yeah.
not like us at all. So members nights were not really a common thing.
Yeah.
Overnighters were because they were pulling like 60, 90 people like consistently every
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
It was
Well, that
good
makes sense,
revenue.
I suppose. So you
Yeah.
you kind of didn't experience the members nights. You were playing the lock-ins then, I guess would be
Yes.
more fair. Okay.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
were they playing different styles of games, or was it just, 20 solo games?
Definitely the different styles. We would call for
Nice.
it like Dracula, like Queen
Nice.
Bee.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say was your two-part question? What would you say was your favorite back then? And then what would you say is your favorite now? Like what's if you had to play like one of those specialty games, what was your favorite?
Dracula, I guess, was my
So what's
favorite back
what's
then.
what's Dracula?
So Dracula was kind of like this really cool game mode where you start off and you have either like one or two Dracula, which are like the host vampires,
Yep.
and then you have 15 players who are humans, or
Okay.
basically roughly half the packs that you have in the center.
Mhm.
So Dracula is red, humans are green. Humans have 10 lives. Dracula has
Mm.
superpowers, so he cannot be tagged on the laser on the shoulder. Whenever a human gets eliminated, goes back to the airlock, puts the green pack back, takes a red pack, and becomes a vampire. So you
Nice.
have like two Draculas and like 15
Yeah.
humans, and at the end you have like 15 like Draculas chasing the poor one human that's left.
So the
Which was
goal
kind
is
of
to
cool,
be the last human standing, essentially. Then at that point in time, right?
right? But since I was already pretty good, they would normally pick me as Dracula, and I would just like clean sweep
Oh, okay.
everybody, which was always a good feeling.
Right on. Yeah, for sure, for sure. What about now? If you had to pick one now, 21 years later, would Dracula still be your favorite one?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Nah, it has to be knack style. Yeah, and it has to be knack style. Like specialty games are not really my cup of tea
Yeah.
anymore.
Yep.
Like the role playing and stuff, it's
Mhm.
it's all about like competition and like just improving your technique and stuff.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So you mentioned that Crush was kind of the guy that started getting the ball rolling, if you will, on
Yes.
on 1999. You played your first corporate tournament. I don't know if you'd played any side tournaments prior to that, but you played your first
No.
corporate tournament that was your first tournament as well. You hadn't played anything.
First tournament.
All right. Okay.
No, nothing else.
So your first tournament, your first goal or your first attempt at seeing competitive play is London in 1999 for the North Regionals,
Yes.
correct? So take me
Yes.
through prior to getting there. What was the process like for you guys getting the team together? Who was involved? Who was on that first team?
So Crush was the captain of the team. And I remember we were having tryouts, but there was only a handful of players that were interested.
Okay.
So it was not the first tryout that we ever had. I think we had like 7 players one night and then maybe like 8 the second night. So nothing
Okay.
really to write home about. It was nothing official. It was more Crush like pulling players.
Mhm.
And I remember I'm going to try to remember the roster because not many of those players
Well, you don't have to name.
still
I don't know if
play.
I could
Yeah.
name everybody that was on my roster spec. So who were some of the people then, just that
So
you can think of?
Too Short was on there.
Okay. Okay.
There was a player called Darth Vader,
Okay.
which we had in Montreal, which he was decent. He was actually pretty good if he
Okay.
had kept playing. This
Yep.
tall, lanky lefty guy who modeled his play style after Blair, as
A few of
everybody
those
did.
tall, lanky, left-handed guys got pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder why. Myself and then all of the other players. I remember Ghostface. He didn't
Okay.
make the team. Like he couldn't go for
Oh,
some
wow.
reason.
Okay.
But he was at the beginning of his career as well.
Ghostface, as in like the OG Lewis, the
Yes.
original Lewis. Okay.
Yeah, the original Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was pretty much it. All the other ones, Hitman was actually on that team, Mike.
Yeah, I think that was where I met him. Was in '99.
Yeah. And regionals '99 was it was really fun. So first of all, I did the ultimate nerd thing, as in I skipped my prom to go to regionals '99. I know.
All right, cool. Well, hey, listen, man. Like, I'm not even going to pretend. Like, tag was a really big deal back in the
Yeah.
day. So I can understand where you're coming from.
Plus, also 3 of the people on the team were actually people that I was going to high school with. So my personal friends that I kind of roped into playing Laser Quest.
They were on the team with you.
They were. So Darth Vader
Who were
was one.
Who were those guys? Who were those guys?
Darth Vader was one.
Mhm.
The Hitman was one.
Mhm.
And actually, the third one quit shortly before he actually didn't go. But to me, it was more like I can either go to prom, and I really didn't get along with the people like in high school,
Yep.
or I can like take this trip to London, like 10 hours away to the end of the world with my friends, and like have an awesome weekend and play laser tag, right?
Well, all right, and you're a 17-year-old kid, and you're going to
Yeah.
another province, and you're going to get to meet people, and you're going to get to do all this stuff, which ended up, we didn't know it at the time when we were first going to our first tournaments, but it really ended up becoming, I think a big part and a big draw
Oh,
to
definitely.
the actual tournaments, right? Okay, so you get there. It's 1999. You're 17 years old. Had you seen players from other centers yet, or no?
So I don't exactly remember the timeline, but I remember that there was a lock-in where Conan and Deep Freeze came to Montreal, and I think that was shortly
Okay.
after regionals.
Okay.
So this would have been my first experience
Okay.
playing with players from other center. Only exception being King Reef, which was
Yeah.
an Edmonton player who had moved to Montreal shortly before regionals, very shortly before regionals.
Yep.
And he hadn't played with us. The team was already set, so he couldn't really be on that team.
Okay.
Yeah, so I get to regionals, and there was a loss in translation in the first game because Crush, or Captain, he might have mentioned it or he might not. I'm not sure he understood fully, but we didn't know that there was a head cap. Like, we didn't know that we
Oh
could
no.
tag players more than 11 times. I think it was 11 at the time.
Yeah.
So I get into the first game, and I'm playing against the same two people for 8 minutes, and I railed them. I crushed them.
Yeah.
And I come out of the game, I have 183 points. So I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh man.
I remember the two players were pissed at me. I think it was like somebody on Toronto B. It was a girl, and I think it was Corpse on Toronto. Yeah.
Okay. I remember him.
And I demolished him, and I come out of there, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? And then I realized there was a hit cap. I was like, oh shit. So then I go back into the second game, and I win the game with 539 points.
Wow.
And I was super proud of it. I was like, fuck, I wish I had known this from the get-go.
So you won your second game at a competitive tournament?
Yes. And also, we don't have stats from that regionals, but I remember that I think my lowest score was like 450 or something like that, like other than the 183 points.
Yeah, other than that first game, which was kind of a blip, right?
That's it. And in playoffs, we played Westland and Toronto East, and I had like a 430-ish like average.
Yeah.
And I remember when we came out of playoffs, we only had the members terminal, right? Mm-hmm. So I put like my members key on the members terminal, and it said I was 5th without ever playing a game in London before.
Wow, that's impressive.
So like in my mind, I'm like, fuck, I'm the 5th best player in the region, right? And I did by far like the best like out of the Montreal players.
Yeah.
But that perception I had of myself would soon come to a crashing. Like I'll tell you a little bit more about this after regional.
For sure. Well, it was an interesting, and I can tell you from like kind of our standpoint. Obviously, that was my first interaction with the Montreal team and stuff like that. I can tell you, for you personally, I don't remember, and I mean this just speaks to it and furthers it. And it was ironically something I was going to bring up a little bit later, but I don't remember you ever not being a good player. Like, if that makes sense. I remember you kind of just showing up, and like I was like, wow, that guy's good. Like, you know what I don't ever remember you not being a good player. So okay. So you guys ended up, where did you finish in 1999? So you play Westland and Toronto East in the playoffs. Obviously, yes. I think Westland advanced to the finals. So where did you finish? Did you lose to Toronto East, or did you beat Toronto East?
We lost Toronto East, I think, by maybe 700 points. So pretty handily. Okay. And then Westland was like 3,000 points ahead or something ridiculous. Yeah.
Westland was obviously a strong team back then.
They were.
So 99 is your first, your first kind of competitive experience. What were your thoughts about it when you first, when you first got there? What were some of the thoughts that you had?
I loved it. Also, the fact that it was not only the fact that, like in Montreal, there was the packs were so different. Then I thought I was already like one of the top players, but it would like go back and forth. But just coming out of the regionals, and I was like, it was clear cut ahead of everybody else. Yeah. I was like, nice, like that felt really, really good. And also coming like I told you, like not being super social, teenage years, it was a really good way for me to like build my self confidence and be like, holy shit, I'm good at something. Yeah.
Come out of your shell, right? Because immediately it gives you that confidence to.
That's it. And I remember just seeing some players pull shit that I had never seen before. And I was like, holy shit, I want to be this good. So it was kind of like motivating to keep playing.
Who was that? Who were some of the players that you remember playing in 99 that kind of stuck out in your mind?
So definitely, there was a Madison Heights player called Leach.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Okay.
think was his
Yep.
code name,
Yep.
and he was talking shit to everybody in the maze like there was no tomorrow to try to get under their skin, right?
Leech is Jerk's brother or
Yes,
cousin. Yeah,
yes. And we
was.
came out of the game, and he was like talking shit to me. He was like, "Oh, you suck. You have no game and everything." And you come out of the maze, nicest guy ever. He's like, "Oh
Yeah,
man, you were super good in there." And like, I was like, "Okay, there is like definitely like a mental element to this game."
of course. Yeah.
And then I saw Dave Exodus.
Yep. Yep.
Um, he was playing. He was double teaming with, I think it was either Steve or either the Force or 99 style. But anyway, they were stuck in a corner,
Hmm.
and basically one player was protecting Dave, and Dave was like doing all these crazy moves and just scoring like 700 points a game, like something stupid. So I was like, okay, like we had no teamwork in Montreal at that time. There was not even the concept of teamwork. So I was like, holy shit, there is actually something to do, something we can actually implement in Montreal to reach success.
For sure. So you go back to Montreal after regionals in '99. You obviously
Yep.
you didn't qualify for NACs, unfortunately.
Nope.
Did you take a break? Did you just get right back to playing? What was the
Right
thought
back to
process?
playing.
Right back to playing.
I
Excellent.
Oh yeah, I think we got back to Montreal, and I think that very night I was at the center, like
Wow.
try and play and apply my newfound skills.
Well, that's right. And you're on this high, right? Because you're like, my God, I went to regionals. It was my first experience, and I crushed it. And
Yep.
I'm sure you were getting. I can remember coming away from regionals, and the only play. I mean, I remember Crush obviously because he was just a kind of like a larger than life kind of guy.
Yes.
And he spent a lot of time talking to my dad actually. So that was kind of
Okay.
how yeah, they I don't know. Anyway, and
They
I guess
bonded.
yeah, and my father grew up in Montreal, right? So Montreal, so my
Oh, okay.
dad, so for that reason, my dad was there obviously because I was a kid, but I remember he spent a lot of time talking to Crush. So the two people that I came away from 1999 with knowing were Crush because he was this kind of nice guy, this cool guy. Plus, he was this 6 foot,
Yeah.
whatever, 250 pound professional wrestler. Like it was pretty
Yeah.
sweet. And then you and I remembered you because I was like, wow, that was the guy from Montreal that was killing everybody. That's Montreal's best player. So it makes complete sense to me that you would get back and get right back to the grind and stuff. Um, and for those people that don't know, it wasn't, I kind of touched on it earlier, like where there was no point in time where you were bad. I think when most people start out and they play LQ, they're bad. Like I started off playing
Yeah.
and I was bad. It took me a while to get, I couldn't win public games. Sorry, the dog squeaky toy again.
All good.
I couldn't win public games and stuff like that. You didn't experience that. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Well, it's funny that you say this because so shortly after regionals, I think Brampton was hosting a mixer, I think as a fundraiser for
Probably. Yep.
for NACs, and I attended. I went with Mike, with Darth Vader, and I think one more person was part of that trip. So I go to Brampton, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm this hot shot from the north. I'm gonna kill everybody. And I remember the first game, I'm on the floor and I'm in between. I'm not even bothering to hide or anything. I'm just like standing in
Yeah.
the middle. I'm like, I'm gonna move. I'm gonna wreck everybody, and I'm in between like Spacho,
Mm.
Blair,
Ooh.
and I can't. It was a Roch. I think it might have been DDR or Kyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so my delusions of being that great player, unstoppable force, came to a crash at end. I did not have a good tournament. I think I averaged out like 200 points a tournament, and I was like, oh shit, okay, there's still work to be done there
There's
for
still some
sure.
work to do. All right, so you go back in, after that. Obviously, I think at that point in time, it was pretty clearly established that you were the best player in Montreal. So
Yes,
what type of things did you guys do after that? Who was kind of, I have an idea of who I think the next guy to kind of, step up and
yes.
get good was, but who was the next one that came kind of after you? Because you were the immediate, top guy.
So in 2000, I'd say the clear cut second best player was probably King Reef. Um,
Okay, I've forgotten about him.
and Yep, and until so it wasn't until like late 2000. Actually, Darth Vader was pretty good. King Reef always had. He was a weird guy. He was like
Hmm.
as you know, there's been stories like he got into like a
I know
fight
the
and one
slaughter
of
the
them. Yeah,
slaughter
that's it.
story. Yep.
Exactly. So it was very temperamental. So it's kind of like you wouldn't. really like play one-on-one against the guy or anything like that because you get pissed, right? Or you
Yeah.
get like temperamental, which is terrible for team development.
Yep.
So I would say Darth Vader was probably a better player because even if nobody else wanted to play, him and I would just go on one-on-one for like 15 minutes, and like
Yep.
play 3-4 games like this, practice mirror, practice like angles. Um, so it would have to be one of those two guys. And then in the end, in the late 2000, there's a guy called Sith Lord who started playing, who I was really proud, and I was like, holy shit, I'm Montreal's best player.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sith Lord kind of put me in my place. Jesus Christ, the guy was amazing.
Well, we can debate about that. I mean, I've always thought and always maintained that you were Montreal's best player, but Sith Lord definitely got good. What happened? What about Ghostface? Ghostface, I thought came before Sith Lord.
He did, but Ghostface Louis proudly holds the record for a Montreal player for the lowest score at the corporate tournament ever.
No way.
In regional 2006, in regional, he scored minus 56.
No,
Fucking horrible. He was bad in 2000.
he was bad. Okay, I don't remember
terrible.
that. I remember him. I remember him being a pretty good player. So I was slightly wrong on that. I'd forgotten about King Reef. Obviously, I knew about Sith Lord, but I thought Ghostface kind of came before Sith Lord.
He became good in like 2001, 2002 ish.
Okay.
And in 2003 where he hit his peak. But
Yeah.
like when he started playing, and like he only started I think in like early '99 or something like that. So yeah, he wasn't that great at the beginning. He was kind of like a laughing stock actually, but he became really good after.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here, but there was a point in time where the two of you guys were both working for the company, right?
Yes.
And I don't think that people realize how much of and then he couldn't play, I believe was the case, right? You were playing, but he couldn't play.
Well, it didn't get to this because
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that
Okay.
a little bit later on. Yeah.
Because I was getting my whole point was I don't think that people realize the difference that it would have made to have the two of you on the team at the same time when you guys were both at that level where you were both very good
Right.
players. So I might have I'm getting my times, I guess, a little bit out of tune here.
It's been 20 years.
It has, yeah. All right, so we talked about becoming elite. So we kind of touched on that. So you went back, you learned all these things in '99. What type of things were you trying to implement, and who helped you along the way? Which players were you leaning on at that point in time?
No one really, because Crush had quit after NAC '99. He kind of after regionals '99, he kind of lost interest, and also Crush had a very disappointing tournament. He was somebody with a lot of ego.
Oh, okay.
And he did not do well individually at all.
Mm-hmm.
So he would keep playing for the fun of it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
he even made a comeback in regionals 2001 just to play on the B team.
Okay.
To try and pass on knowledge to like new players and stuff.
Yeah.
But he did not play 2000. He did not have like real motivation to play.
Okay.
So from then on, it was like really me trying to build up the team, right?
Yep.
We didn't really other than like as I said, like myself and Darth Vader like playing one-on-one, we didn't really scrimmage or like practice anything. We would just play solo games like over and over and try and get better this way. So
that's a shame.
It was all about.
Sorry, I was gonna say it's a shame because I feel like if you had the support of your management and stuff like that, that could have really made a big difference for you guys.
It did. A little bit later on, we kind of cycled. Yeah, that's it. We kind of cycled management at some point, and we lost Anne, and we had Andres, which you've worked with.
I know
before,
Andres, yes.
Which is still with the company. Yeah, that's it.
He's a great
who I remember the old manager that was working under Anne came in the office at some point while Andres had just been hired as a general manager, and she was like, "Oh, those fucking members, they're so annoying." And Andres was like, "Excuse me, like these guys pay your salary. They're the most they're your most loyal customers.
There you go.
And they're they're the people you want to treat as VIP. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You will never use this language with me about members like ever again." And he told me the story. I was like, holy shit, this is like complete 180.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like competitive, there was no structure, nothing really. We just like beat on each other senseless and try and get better this way.
I think there was a lot of that back in the in the late '90s, the early 2000s, stuff like that. There wasn't a ton of structure. I think it was just you kind of showed up, you played, and that was really it. We all didn't really know what we were doing at that point in time. Yeah. That's why I don't credit anybody that won anything back then. It doesn't count for anything. So what happened in the year 2000?
So 2000, we actually hosted a tournament in Montreal. and I think you attended that
I
tournament,
did.
if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
I did.
And it was a total bootleg, a total like shit show. There was not much organization. We were just like, I think it was straight up like 6 prelim games and then straight to finals. There was no like playoffs or anything like that.
Okay.
And I remember the way the schedule was made. It it ended up being us in the finals. I think Brampton did not make finals. They got bootlegged by Ben's team, by Conan's team. And
That sounds
somehow,
about right.
yeah, and there was a team with like Force, Blair, and like DDR, like that ended up not making finals. So we played Toronto East A and Toronto East B in the finals. That's how much of a like fucking shitty schedule we had. And we ended up winning that tournament. The roster was me, King Reeve, Darth Vader, Undertaker, and Too Short, and it was ridiculous. But it was kind of cool to win my first tournament, right?
Yeah,
And I
so
was
that
like,
was the first. That's the first win. Nice.
exactly. And I remember the like Montreal's maze was
No.
so cramped up that the scores were insane. I think I had like an average in prelims of like 883 points
Whew.
or something stupid. But like people would come out of games with like a grand. Like
But we would have been playing 15-minute games back then, right?
No, it was 8 minutes. It was 8 minutes.
Was it
But
really?
it was like
Okay.
like 2 second downtime. And
Wow.
like you've played the Montreal Arena, like if you're in that, imagine 15 players cramped into that one tower, that's one like super small tower.
Yeah.
If you have a good position, like it's a
Yeah.
and
Or good,
the packs,
good pack, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The packs were so unequal. So that was really cool. And then another thing that's worth mentioning is I became the captain of the team as well. Just de facto, no one really wanted to do it, and I was the one recruiting players anyway. So people were kind of like, okay, you do it. And I did not want to have the perception that I was biased. So instantly, when I became the captain for regionals or for corporate tournaments, I would give myself 9 pack, which was kind of a mistake at the time. I know. And I would like pack up like Undertaker and like Darth Vader and like players like this.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm just gonna rock the 9 pack. So we ended up going to regionals in Rochester, and we got 7th place. We got eliminated by, I think it was London, by just like about 190 points.
Yep.
Or something like that. It was kind of a heartbreak because the NEC that year was in Toronto East.
Yeah.
And we were all like broke and poor and stuff. So that would have been perfect for us to, go to the finals and not have to pay like for flights to like Texas or Colorado or something like that.
Yep, that makes sense. So 2000 rolls around, is past, you don't really get the result that you're looking for at regionals. Right. So you were playing. I think by that time you were starting to play some more side tournaments and stuff like that. Side tournaments were starting to pop up.
Yes. So we're attending SummerSlam. Any like tournaments that's close, we would go, and we would always play homegrown. I think just because I think the language difference, or we weren't super social at tournaments either. Okay. Like the maybe the Westland guys would talk to us, Brampton would talk to us, and then Conan, and that was pretty much our our Laser Quest social circle. I think the closest that we ever came to stacking is we had Casper from Westland play with us for like a winter slam, and we got like 4th place or like something like that. But it wasn't nothing to write home about. I don't want to get my timeline mixed up. Okay, yeah, so even 2001 we're still playing homegrown, but then 2001 the regionals were in Mississauga that year, and we felt like we had a really good chance of doing good at the tournament because by that time we had played like 3-4 Mississauga tournaments. So we kind of knew the tower, we kind of knew the outline. And it was our first year that we had Sith Lord and Max Payne, which were kind of like new players, play with us. They did not play on the A team. They played on the B team because they wanted to form a team with like Crush and Sith Lord's girlfriend at the time. But it helped a lot to have them on board because that's about the time that we started practicing as team, like do scrimmage. And it would actually help tremendously to have that competition, like, on the B team. And it's also around the time that I started attending every side tournament that I can with Sith Lord and Spain on my team. And then we would pick like 2 random members from Montreal. Yeah. So we go to regionals 2001, and we actually did good in regionals 2001. I'm still playing ninth pack, but I think I get like 20th in the region or something like that, which is
that's impressive. Yeah.
Bad, but but I have a really good position in in the tower in Mississauga.
Mhm.
And
Where were you playing?
we
Where in Mississauga were you playing? Where's your spot?
so I was playing a back mirror, like back wall mirror,
Mhm. Well, I know
like
it.
between, yeah, that's it. So between kind of two players, and I had like decent coverage. I had
Good.
Darth Vader who was packed up like covering me,
Mhm.
and like Undertaker, old school player, was in the tower as well.
Mhm.
So I could like be loud, yell, and like people would always like cover me if I was down. And then we ended up in the playoffs with Brampton and Toronto East, which was pretty much a dream for us because I remember Jamie coming up to me, grabbing me by the shoulder, and being like, "Congratulations, you're advancing. You know, you're going to NXT." And go to NEC we did. We ended up Brampton like bootleg Toronto East like hard. And we ended up like I don't think we needed it, but they we still advanced
Yeah.
by like 1,000 points. We beat Toronto East, and we made consoles, and in consoles we beat, I believe it was Clinton Township. We played
Yeah, because
Appleton.
you guys got fourth, right?
We got fifth.
Fifth. Okay.
I believe we played Appleton and Clinton Township.
Okay.
And not only did we advance, but we also beat Clinton Township, which 2 years prior had gotten third in 99 regionals.
Yep. Yep.
So we were really proud. But coming out of this regionals, the boards were instantly flooded with Clinton Township players, like just talking shit about how we cheated, how we pulled like stunts, how we played physical. And I got into a feud with like Heckler and Nova way back in the days. So that's
Really?
just, yeah. There was
Hold
some
on,
drama.
hold on, because I don't remember any of this, and I don't remember you getting into a feud with anybody. You have like the reputation of being like the nicest guy in LQ. So
I
what was this feud over?
so I think they were accusing us of cheating, and I wasn't having any of it. And it was
Right.
like stupid, like 18 or 19-year-old me, like name calling, like, oh, you did this, you did that. It was fucking stupid, man. But like I was young, and I think that's like the only drama I've ever really had with
Okay.
like people from Laser Quest. But anyway, needless to say, like the entire region was like, you guys are stupid. They play clean, like leave them alone, except for maybe like King Reef,
Yeah, King Reef
which
was pretty dirty.
he probably had it coming. Oh, also that year we stacked with another player from Edmonton. His coding was Pestilence, I think.
Okay.
And yeah, he came over to play on our team. He didn't do good. He didn't do like bad either. He did like middle of the pack.
Okay.
But yeah, we ended up advancing. And also we needed him on a team just because Sith Lord and Max Payne, they were A-team material, but they were playing on the B team that year. So we kind of needed him to fill that spot.
So this is 2001, correct?
Yeah.
2001, you advanced to your first NAC. So
Yes.
2001 NAC was in
Colorado Springs, I
Colorado
think.
Springs. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
No. Colorado Springs was 02.
No?
02. I feel like it was NRH. NRH was 2001. Did you go to Texas?
No, it was something we could not afford.
So so you
Yeah,
advanced
so
but didn't go.
correct.
So then it was
So
Texas. It was Texas then. It was
okay.
it was 01 was Texas. Yeah.
So what kind of sucks about Montreal, and a little bit of a geographical disadvantage that we have, is flights out of Montreal to anywhere in the States are fucking expensive. And I realized that when I moved to Toronto, where literally I could fly to Texas for half the price, right?
Yeah.
The opposite is if you fly from Toronto to France, it's twice the price than if you'd fly from Montreal to France. So
Interesting.
yeah, because I guess and it's also really cheap to fly from here to Florida. But I guess it has to go with like the level of business. Where are people from Quebec going?
Yeah.
And no one from Quebec is going to Colorado or or to Texas. You know what I mean?
True.
So we didn't. It just financially it was not feasible for us. I think it was like $700 for us to fly into an
Yeah.
RH.
Plus hotels, plus food,
Yeah.
plus like it was expensive doing the LQ thing for sure.
And the logic also was like, well, for that amount of money, I can do like 6 local tournaments, and
Right.
there is 6 local tournaments, at that time.
Yep.
So it kind of sucked. I kind of regret it now, but like it would not have been financially viable for us.
Yeah, and you don't want to push yourself into like a giant hole. All right, so 2001, you guys don't go to NACs despite the fact that you advance. So 2002 rolls around.
Yes.
2002 regionals were in Westland.
2002, we actually got placed in the East.
Oh, this is where we went to Richmond.
Yes, but before regionals rolls around, we there's a tournament in London, which was called the London Gladiator Tournament.
Okay.
And I remember at that point, Sith Lord, Max Ben, and I attended a bunch of tournaments, and we've never played with anyone from like other centers. And Force, Steve messages me and he's like, "Hey, how would you and Sitlord like to play with me?" It was Steve, Dave, Exodus, and Jerk, and
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
we're like, "Sure, we'll do it. Like, it sounds good." And we went, and we had no expectations of winning because I think the team that was the favorite was, at that time, it was Blair, Kyle, Bad Andy, DDR, which is pretty fucking stacked.
Yeah.
But the fifth player on that team was Kazorp, was Blair's girlfriend
Yeah.
from
Right. Yeah.
London. Yeah,
Yeah.
and and then we played these guys in the final, and we played the third team was, you were on it. I think it was a flat out the BBC team. I think it was you, Corwin, Unknown, Deep Freeze, and Hetfield was an alternate. So I can't remember who the
I
fifth
feel it was the
players were.
alternate at a side tournament.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
Um, and yeah, so we ended up, and it was this weird format where, like, I think we played Triple Quest, and everybody had 33 lives, and you were trying to, like, yeah, it was
Oh, right.
this weird
Okay.
thing.
I don't remember this, but I do remember the tournament style. Yep.
Yeah, and we ended up winning that tournament.
Nice.
And it was my second win after Montreal, and this one really felt good because it was not homegrown where I know the packs and the maze.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to play with players from other centers.
Right.
Um,
First taste of
and I
sake.
remember, yeah, exactly. And I remember, like, we come out of there and, like, Forrest gives me the PPK jersey.
Nice.
Like, he's like, "Here you go." And I was like, "Holy shit." I was like, this meant the world to me, right? I was like, "Holy shit,
Yeah.
that's amazing." So that was a really cool experience.
That's great.
And then 2002 regionals, like, were, like, as you said, we get moved to the east.
Mm-hmm.
And we did not have a good time at regionals.
So what happened? What made you not have a good time at the East Regional?
So personally, I was still the captain of the team. I was still playing really shitty packs. I was, like, going up on a ramp and trying to snipe, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was terrible.
I did a lot of that myself, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, right. And especially at that regionals, I don't know if you remember the packs, but, like, Sitlord was on, like, first pack, and he came out sometimes, and I've been tagged 7 times total, So they were, like, ridiculously unequal. And I remember it was not a good time in my life. I had some personal shit going, and I was very temperamental. And I remember I almost got the team disqualified because what happened is we drew in playoff. In consolation, we drew Wyoming and Rochester, and there was only 5 teams that were allowed to advance.
Okay.
And then after the Triple Quest, when all was said and done, we beat Rochester by like 600 points, like pretty handily. And then it turns out that Penguin, who was playing in Wyoming, was wearing the Be Jesus pack and had not gotten tagged once on the laser.
Okay.
So because of that, I think it was 400. We were ahead by 400.
Okay.
The argument was that he could have been tagged 40 times on the laser by a Rochester player, and they chose to replay that game. It was something retarded like this. So I remember, like, I was pissed, and they said they were going to replay after we celebrated, and I, like, walked out and I slammed the door, and I almost got our team, like, ejected, like, like, disqualified. So we ended up playing another game, which we lost. And then the area manager, to his credit, like, came to us and he was like, "Well, do you guys feel cheated?" And and then we're like, "Yeah, fuck, we beat them. What is this bullshit?" So we ended up playing a third game after that, a third replay, just for the fact that like, we felt cheated and we felt it was unfair, and we still lost that one. So at that point, we're like, it sucks, but they beat us 2 out of 3 times. We did beat them the first game, but they beat us 2 out of 3 times. So what you gonna do? So yeah, and being in the East, which we knew you guys, we knew Toronto East, but we were not really close to, like, anyone else.
Yeah.
We lost to VB, I think, in the playoffs. We were playing VB in Charlotte, and VB ended up getting first and going to the finals. And we expected, like, with VB in the playoffs, that we would go to the finals. So, and also Ghostface did the non-nerd thing and actually attended his prom and did not attend regionals. So he was missing. He was not on the team. So it was kind of like a bummer. We had some internal team drama as well. And it was 17 hours to drive there as well. It was fucking terrible.
I made that drive, and that center, that location, that hotel, everything about Richmond I just hated it. Absolutely hated it. That was we obviously had a different, we did a little better. But I hated that weekend. I hated it. So your sentiments, everything that you're saying, I hated the center, I hated the packs, I hated the location, I hated the drive, I hated being in the East. So I can echo and I can understand everything that you're saying there.
The good thing that came out of there, though, is so I don't remember which team, but there was a team that ended up not being able to go to NEC that year, and NEC was in Norwich. So we actually ended up going to NEC.
Yep.
And we had, I think we had a decent showing for our first year. I remember we won a game against, I want to say it was Canton and maybe Colorado Springs,
Okay.
which was not too bad. We got,
those are good teams. Those are quality teams.
We got a handful of second places. One most memorable one, I think we came within maybe like 150 points of beating Houston that year in a prelim game, which was kind of cool.
This was 03, right?
02.
02. So 02. Houston was pretty good at that time.
Yeah. Some games we got demolished. We played Mountain View and Phoenix in the other tower. They wanted to play in the second tower, and we got our asses ended to us. But it is what it is. But I was still pretty proud of that year, and it was the first national experience. I was still playing shit packs, but I didn't really give a shit.
How'd you feel you performed personally? I mean, ranks excluded, because obviously when you're playing a pack that's that bad, you can't.
It was rough. I definitely had feelings from that mixer in Brampton where I felt outclassed, but not to the point where I wanted to quit. Right? I was still like, okay, no, I can still see that if people persist, if people keep playing, if we keep working at it, we can become good. And this was the first one, so just the experience was amazing. The experience was really cool.
So 2000 and let's fast forward to 2003, which I believe this was your last year for a while, right? Okay, so talk to me about 2003. What happened in 2003? Where were regionals? Did you guys advance? All that jazz.
So 2003 was very pivotal. And had I not come to work for LaserQuest, I think this would have been like a really pivotal year for Montreal, because I was no longer a team captain. Okay. Max Payne took over. He's somebody with a lot of leadership, so kind of people were voting for him to be the team captain. And Sith Lord was in his prime and was on the team. And I remember Max Payne was like, "You're a fucking moron. You're getting off shit packs, and we're putting you on number 1, number 2 with Sith Lord, where you belong, you fucking idiot."
Good choice. Good choice. Yeah. Good choice.
So, and we've been playing a ton of side tournaments together, and it felt like we were forever locked into 4th place, because whatever side tournament we would attend, it would be in the finals. It would be a mix of Brampton, Rochester, Westland, and us. Every single tournament. It's so frustrating, but sometimes we'd come close. Sometimes it'd be a blowout. But these side tournaments contributed to when you're playing these guys over and over, you become good, right? Yeah. So I go to regionals 2003, and everything was clicking for me on that weekend. I remember rank wise, I got first in the region, because I got 3 first places, 2 second places, and a 5th place.
Nice.
5th place against Westland. And
let me jump in for 2 seconds. Where was it in 03? I should know this stuff, but I don't. It was in Clinton Township. All right.
Clinton Township. That's it. Yep. And our team really, really gelled. Everybody was just vibing, having a good time. The 9th player actually on our team was Dark Phoenix, which was probably 7. He was super young.
He still looks 7.
Yeah, he does. His genes. I think it was 13, but even Dark Phoenix playing really, really good. He was not playing good decks, and he was doing well. And I think I got score-wise, I got 3rd in the region behind Dave Exodus and Idiot from Clinton Township.
Yeah.
And we ended up in playoffs against Rockford and Madison Knights. And Rockford was obviously a big favorite to take that one. And
Rockford was good back then. Yep.
Yes. And Madison Knights had Jerk on the team, and he was kind of leading, it was kind of their home base, right? Because it's Clinton Township.
Yeah.
So I remember the first game we had the God Packs, and we beat, and Rockford was on the shit packs, the shit sets, and we beat them by 125 points or something like this. And I remember we came out of the maze, and my team is cheering obviously because they beat Rockford, but I'm looking at Max, I'm like, ooh, not super good.
That's not enough. That's not enough, right? Yeah, that's what you're thinking.
That's it. And then second game was my worst game of the tournament. The second game of the playoff, I got eighth place.
Okay.
And I remember I'm in there and I'm seeing downloads like eighth place, ninth place, and I'm like, oh fuck, we're getting railed. Like this is not
Yeah.
good. And I
Yeah.
come out of there and I'm like sixth on our team or something like
Oh,
that. And
okay.
we have crap packs and Rockford has like medium packs, and
Mhm.
we beat them by like 600 points. And I'm like, what the shit just happened? Like how is that
Right
even
on.
possible? But I remember like my team is cheering. They're all like, yeah, like Rockford is like
Mhm.
shock shield. They're like what the hell is going on?
Mhm.
So uh, third game, Jerk comes to me, and I'm like super close with Jason at that time, and he's like,
Mhm.
okay, my team is like really down the hole right now. We don't have a prayer of catching you guys, but I think we can catch Rockford. So let's do this. Let's split up into three towers. And I don't know if you remember in Clinton Township, all the games were played like mostly on the floor.
I
And
don't,
he's
but okay.
like, okay. And he's like, let's split up into three towers. I'll send three guys like in three towers. I'm not telling you which one, but like,
Yeah,
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 just
yeah,
send
yeah,
three guys to
yeah.
the tower. Like, you guys get to keep your lead, and we have a chance of catching Rockford. So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, let's do it. Bootleggish, but at the same time, it's triple quest, right? You got to do
Triple
what you
Quest.
got to
Yeah. Triple Quest was the fundamentals of bootlegging were there. So yep.
do. So we go and we do it, and Rockford doesn't really sorry, Madison Knights doesn't really catch up to Rockford because we come out of there and all three teams are essentially tied. They're within
Yeah,
like
because
50
you're
points of one
splitting
another.
everything. That strategy doesn't make any sense. It's great for you guys who are in the lead, but
Yeah,
it's terrible
absolutely.
for everybody else.
Well, the last place team, they wanted the Jerks team. They just wanted to advance, right? So they
Hmm.
were like, oh, maybe like we can score enough points off of each other that, and we're actually on the medium set. It's like we can maybe like score enough points out of each other before Rockford realizes what's happening. Then my team will get a chance to catch up, right? Which at that point I can then like it's the desperation move. Like
Hmm.
you have
It
to
also
try
makes
something, right?
it doesn't make any sense. Like if you're trying to catch a
Right.
team by scoring points, that the weirdest thing to do is to split it. They should have
Yeah.
been like, hey, let's go here. We'll put all of our guys here. We'll play all of you guys. Like
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, but okay. So anyway, so that ends up happening.
Yeah.
And so what was the end result?
So we beat Rockford pretty handily. We're super happy. Madison Knights gets third, Rockford gets second, and we make
So,
finals for the first
so you
time.
guys make your first final, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and
So
we're
you get on to finals. We're in Clinton Township. It's 2003. Who are you playing against?
we're playing against Brampton and Westland,
Okay.
and Westland has been dominating. And I remember Jamie Hetfield comes over and essentially goes like, "We're bootlegging, right? we're screwing Westland." And I remember we talked it over, and we were like super friendly with the Westland guys at some point. Like I said, like they were the first ones to like stack like with us and like
Yep.
play with us. So we're like, no man, like it's anyone but Westland. If it was any other team, like we'd do it. You guys did it for like Toronto East, but we can't. We just can't. So we went in there and we didn't. It's stupid to say, but we didn't try to the fullest of what we could have done.
Was it a case
Because
of you were happy to be there? You think?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
you'd already won by
yeah,
making your finals? Okay.
like third place was, like well and above what we expected to do, and also from spending the last like 2 3 years constantly losing to Westland and Brampton,
Mhm.
it gets in your head. You don't think you can beat them, like this is just what it is. So and I remember it was actually fairly close for Brampton. I think we came in within maybe like 400 points or something like
Yeah,
that over a triple quest.
I was yeah, I mean I have vague memories of that, and I remember I was very concerned we were gonna get third place. Very
And
concerned.
we were fucking around. I remember I was on BG's packs, and like the third game, I gave my pack to Too Short. I'm like, here, like here you go, have fun. And I played like a six pack or something like that. And I was like trying to tag like deep freeze with like a shot like behind the back or like something like that. It's a
Jesus.
bit fucking
And us
stupid.
and Westland are like pounding at each other, and you guys are prancing around unicorn shotting and stuff.
Which I
Nice,
kind of
nice.
regret because, as history would tell, this was kind of like our last shot to like kind of do something in a corporate tournament. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you never know what the future holds for you. But
Yep.
still, very positive experience. Like that weekend was the crown achievement of years and years of trying to put together an act team from
Yeah.
scratch. There was no one before me. Crush like is the one
Yeah,
that
you are the foundation, man. You're the groundwork for it, right? So
we
that's
were
pretty cool.
really excited. We were really really happy with this.
So 2003, NACs are, my God, I got to get better at this. But NACs are In where?
Colorado Springs.
There you go. Okay,
Colorado
sure.
Springs, I think. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. They were Denver's last win. Colorado Springs.
Yes.
Yes. So did you guys go?
No.
No.
We had. I would have been able to afford it.
Mhm.
Sitlord was making really good money. He was
Mhm.
able to afford it. That would have been it. I think like three or
Okay.
four of us, and that was
Okay.
pretty much it, which really sucked. Because I remember Malice commenting on the board, being like, when we said we couldn't go, it was like, it's no skin off my nose, but you guys only get so many opportunities to make your mark. Eh? You guys are
Yep.
coming off a really strong regionals performance. It really sucks that you're not going. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but at the same time, like, I don't have like $10,000 to pay for like everybody to
Everybody.
bring everybody.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's disappointing because I remember 2003. Um, I think we ended up getting fourth in 2003. I'm not sure. Yeah, fourth. But I felt like you guys and us were almost on par at that point in time. So I really felt
mm,
like, if you guys had gone there, you would have really had a shot at turning some heads and making some noise and stuff like that. So that sucks to hear. That sucks to hear. Any regrets on that? You regret that you didn't go or you weren't able
no,
to make it
definitely,
happen? Yeah.
no, definitely. Also, it would come to be kind of like the last time that Montreal will kind of all play together,
Hmm.
or that version of Montreal, because in 2004 or early 2004, I got promoted to
You're
manager.
jumping ahead. If you're jumping ahead, stop.
Sorry, sorry. So yeah, no, definitely. I'm really curious to see what we would have done there, and
How do
I
you
think
think
that
you? How do you think you would have done? Put a place on it.
I don't remember. I remember Rockford making consoles, I think.
Hmm.
So either consoles or like 7, 8, 9. So
I'd
definitely, I
put
think we would
you.
have been playoffs.
I would have put you right there in consoles. Like I would have said, we ended up. I think we won consoles that year, and you guys were, like I said, right. I mean, well, you mentioned it. You were close to beating us while you were screwing around. So I think you guys would have. That to me, that was the year. That was the year for Montreal
Yep.
where unfortunately it was unfortunate. Um, that brings me to kind of like my next point. So I was
Yes.
always like, I always felt the Montreal team, especially in 2003, you guys were always like kind of on the cusp of contending to be, moving into that, Brampton and Westland kind of area. Did you feel the same way?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. And especially by the end of 2003, we were playing tournaments. Again, like me, Sith Lord Max, and then like two random Montreal players. And it didn't really, at that point, it didn't really matter who we took from the A team, because
Mm-hmm.
it felt like um, top packs were myself, Sith Lord, Ghostface, and
Yeah.
then anyone else
Mm-hmm.
could play shit packs and come out with like 200-300 points.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
you would see. I remember doing stats for regional 2003 and seeing like Beacon, which was, or Beacon. I don't know, I'm French, but some dude from Rochester who had won multiple like Michigan 3-mans, and he was a good player. Not from Rochester, from Rockford. Sorry, it was
Rockford.
always
It was
like,
it was
yeah,
Beacon from Rockford. Yeah.
Beacon. That's it. And him coming out of games with like -8 or like like very low score, and I was like, fuck, give the same pack to like Too Short, give it to
Yeah.
Citizen, to like
Yep.
Max Payne, Kermit. They're gonna work their ass off, and they're gonna make at least 200-300 points.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to those tournaments, and like Sittler was scoring like monster
Yeah. He was great. He was great
every
back then.
single game.
Yep.
So and few tournaments, like I think we played a tournament in Danvers, and we ended up making the finals. We beat the Richmond team
Mm-hmm.
back when they were pretty good with like Action, like Voltage, all these guys. And we played
Like
in finals against Rochester. Then another tournament, we came like in a triple quest in Mississauga. We were total like 10 points in total score in a triple quest of beating Westland, a Westland A team,
wow.
which was, and I think the team was like me, Lord, Max Payne, Kermit, and Phoenix, or something like that.
Yep.
So we were like right there. Like we just needed a few more years. Like,
So that brings me into my last point because I always felt the same way about you guys. I always felt that you guys were one piece, like one piece away. What was the one piece? What do you think? What was the one thing that would have put you over the top? Because you had the top packs.
yeah,
I mean, Sith Lord was putting up scores. You were putting up scores. Ghostface were putting up scores the same as any other, more or less top three that were out there. You guys were as good on the top as anybody else. Where did you fall? Where was the hole for you guys?
I think we needed strategy. We needed like a game
Okay.
plan, because we were kind of limited in the sense that like if I start building a team from scratch in like 98, 99, NAC has already been around for like 3-4 years,
Yep.
and we didn't have like really like any legacy leaders that had experience like on the North American stage to
Yeah.
kind of take us to the next level, right? So we're kind of just a bunch of kids. We go in there and we do what we always do. We beat on people senseless, and there's no really teamwork, you know.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucked.
So that was, you didn't have the, you know, the
Yeah.
figure, the strategic, you know, piece that would have. I think that's I think that's a really fair assessment. I always felt like you guys were, you know, I've said it like 6 times now, but you were right there. You just, you know, I as a player could never put my finger on, you know, what was missing, because I would go into games and there was a time where I was like, you know, I don't get, you know, I don't get intimidated, or I didn't get intimidated to play anybody, but I did not look forward to going in there and playing against, you know, especially some of those times against you, Sith, and Louis or Ghostface. Like I was like, that's going to be a hard game. Those guys are good. They're tough tags. You know what I mean? And you know, that's coming from, you know, like myself, Corwin, and Blair.
Yeah.
Were not looking forward to going in and playing against you guys. So, you know, that speaks to how good you guys were.
Like in another life, like 20 years ago. Jesus.
Yeah, well, hey,
Um,
this was only, now we're only like 18, 19 years ago.
yeah, true.
Just kidding. All right, so 2003 is over, and then we're going to enter kind of like a new chapter
Yes.
in your story, if you will, because you touched on it earlier when you were spoiling my next
Sorry.
part of the agenda. That's okay,
I'm a
man.
terrible guest.
Yeah, you are. I see how hard this is as a host now.
Yeah.
I was doing the same thing to you. I was like reading ahead on the agenda anyway. So right in the middle of, you're kind of like ascending to become this, you know, really, really good player. Like, you know, I would consider you to have been, at that point in time, you were one of the best players in the North, not just Canada, not just Montreal, but one of the best players in the North region. You know, arguably one of the top, in the top handful in the world. You know, especially yourself and Sith Lord. I really think that you guys were there, and I don't think that a lot of people give you to the credit that you deserved at that point in time.
Thanks. Yeah.
So you decided to become the manager at Laser Quest Montreal.
Yes. Super tough decision.
That was my next question.
Yeah. Because obviously, so I'm 22. I think at that point. Is that right? Yeah, 22. And Montreal is $1 million center. They do a fuck ton of sales, a fuck ton of revenue.
Yeah.
And it is a lot of money because, as you know, like managers and general managers are paid a bonus of a percentage of the sale. Yeah. That's it. So, on one hand, my career is heading towards Laser Quest. I have a background in I studied chemistry and like clinical chemistry, and yeah, it was not. I got into the program, and 2 years into it, I realized it was not for me. So I don't really have any meaningful studies at that point.
Yep.
But a career at Laser Quest, and I'm good at it as well under Andres's guidance.
Passionate about it. And
yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly. So I really want to do it, but at the same time, I've spent at that point 5, 6 years, 7 years, like building a team from scratch, and your team becomes your family. Like, you know this like better than anyone.
Of course.
They're your friends, they're your brothers, they're literally people you've been to war with, you know. Yep. So I feel extremely, extremely shitty to have to make the decision between career and keep on playing with the guys, because like you said, we're on the cusp, I think, of greatness.
You were. You absolutely were.
And I feel like I'm letting down. Like, without me, no one is not going to organize anything. The team is not going to live on. No one has that drive, I guess. And I've been doing it for like 2-3 years, so no one else had the chance to blossom into, like, you know, taking leadership and like making hotel reservations or like, you know, just doing stupid shit like that. So it's a really, really hard decision, but in the end, like, it's you know, like 2-3 times the amount of money that I'm making, and it is legit a career path. So I have to make that choice. I have to become a manager. And at the time, managers could not play NACs or could not play any corporate tournaments, which really sucks. If there is no NAC, if you're not playing with the ultimate goal of like winning regionals, winning NACs, you're not as into it as, you know, as you would be otherwise. Like, the drive to win a side tournament is not the same as, you know, the season, the NAC. So the side effect was that there are a lot of players that like quit that year and that legit were like, oh, if Alex isn't playing, I'm not. We did send a team in 2004 and in 2005, but they were nowhere as good.
Okay. We're not talking. This is about you. This isn't about without you. So we take a different, I remember I remember hearing the news and I was like, there were two parts to it for me because, um, back then I didn't socialize a lot with a lot of people, but I always, for whatever reason, I always liked you guys. It was probably the Canadian thing
Yes,
and the fact my family obviously has roots in Montreal and stuff like that. So I always got along with you guys. Like I don't think, and I was an absolute ass when I was playing, but I don't think I ever had any issues with you guys at
oh,
all. Like I think we were always very cool. So I was sad from that standpoint because I think for me, just from the outside looking at it, I was like, well, that's the end of Montreal. I'm like,
right.
Alex was the heart. Alex was, Montreal. I was like, that's the end of it. But then immediately I kind of jumped to the like, well, my God, I'm like, do they ever have somebody that can marshal NACs and stuff like that now? Do they ever have somebody that, because there were other guys that played that, kind of understood the game stuff. There were other guys that kind of played and understood the game, but there was never a player that was as good as you that was like, okay, I'm now going to go and be working for the company. Right. So, you were in demand as like a marshal. Like I can remember us talking to Jeff Thurwell and Greg Thompson and all that stuff, and like basically being like, we want Alex at regionals, we want Alex at NACs, like all that we want. He should be the head marshal. Like he gets it. So I remember specifically you marshaling at the NACs in 2004.
Yes.
Did you marshal at any other events aside from that?
Yes, I marshaled. I think it was East Regionals in Canton that same year in
Okay.
2004, and actually, some more drama actually happened there. So I think I'm responsible for like a Nashville player quitting the game uh, because there was an incident. I think it was in the playoffs where there's this player called Ground Zero from
Oh
uh,
yeah,
from
yeah. Okay,
Nashville. That's it.
I've heard of this guy. Yeah.
So he was playing like physical with like
Okay.
Onyx from BB,
Yep.
and either I like asked for his card and he didn't have it, or he ended up walking out of the game and like was
Okay.
cussing me out and stuff. And like I think this was like the second game, and then the third game I was following him. I was following Ground Zero around because like people were complaining that he was like playing physical and like hitting and like checking other players. Um, so he got pissed at some point because I was not really paying attention to anyone other than him, and he
Right.
just like gave me his pack and he was like "fuck you" and like walked out of the maze. Like he was like cussing out and like yelling and everything. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, okay. So that was my first experience marshalling in regionals, and yeah, they
Oh
called
man.
me back to marshal finals, which I was very surprised. But to kind of back up a little bit, I remember when they introduced me at regionals 2004. I was in the East region, and they were like, "Oh, here's our secret weapon," and then he says my code name Elven, and like everybody in the front of the house is cheering for me, and I'm like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ,
Yeah. It
I'm
was.
not even in the North region, you know. So that was really cool, and I
It
also
was.
remember.
I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say, yeah. From a player standpoint, it was like because at that point in time, there have been the highest level, like when the game was played, like you were talking about Phoenix and Denver were dominant at that point in time, but there was a lot of
Mm,
bullshit that was happening with some of the lower level teams
right.
I don't mean like lower level, I just mean not like
Yes.
the big dogs. So there were legitimate concerns about cheating and stuff like that, and you were like this beacon of like, oh my God, here's this guy that gets it, that's reasonable, that's a fair guy. So I echo those sentiments. So you marshaled NAC in 2004.
Yes.
um, any recollection? Anything cool happened that year?
Awesome experience. If I can't play the game, at least like I want to have the best seat in the house and fucking watch, like
Yeah,
what's going on. So as it was very bittersweet not to be there and not to play. I was really itching to play, but at the same time, like I remember, like we said and we talked about it in our podcast. But like at some point they were like the our manager was like, "Oh, take a break," I'm like, "No, fuck you! I don't want to miss the game. Brampton's coming out next." So it was really cool because it was in Rochester, and I had a really good spot in the tower where in front of me, like enemy was playing, like was holding on spot, like
yeah.
this game, like it was amazing. Um, and I remember, obviously, I was very biased. I wanted you guys to win. I was still calling like left, right, and center, but
You
still,
called me. You called me. I'm not. I
yeah,
remember being called by you, and So just to clear the air, there was no bias. He warned me for like elbows or no, it was probably leaning. I probably got called for leaning.
Probably.
But I
I
remember specifically, and I remember looking at you and you being like, "Man, I got to do it."
It is what it is. And I remembered we issued a like at some point I was not really cognizant also of the fact that who was playing
Mhm.
because I wanted to focus and try and make it a fair experience. So it's more you're looking at like moves and like I
Yep.
can't I knew tag players, but I couldn't really tell them apart by their elbow. You know what I mean at that point. So,
Right.
but I just remember that experience being really really cool. And I believe the reason why I didn't get called back to Marshall further in ACs is because Montreal exploded as the center. Like
Okay.
business was
Yep.
absolutely insane. Like I was pulling 80 out of no, not really 80, but like 70 hours like per week and stuff at some point,
Yeah.
just because it
Busy
was
boy.
yeah, it became one of the top five centers in the company.
Wow.
Like pretty easy. So I wasn't called to Marshall further in ACs, but that one really stands out. 2004
Mhm.
was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. That was definitely cool. So what was it like working for the company? You're obviously not there anymore. Was it a time that you look back on fondly? Is it?
I'll say this: it definitely it teaches you a lot,
Mhm.
and the lessons that I've learned with Andres, with the general manager specifically,
Mhm.
with Sue Miller, which was really good. Jeff Morris,
Yep.
learned a lot. Teresa Stairs. The lessons that I've learned from these people, I felt have contributed a lot to my professional success later down the line. My
Nice.
work ethic now, wherever I go, people are like impressed. They're like, "Holy shit!" And I learned it at LaserQuest. The job itself extremely stressful, especially in the
Yep.
Montreal center. So there is no parking, like you said, in
Yep.
Montreal. We have birthday parties. Sometimes we'd be booked solid from 9 o'clock in the morning until midnight. You could not
Oh
walk
yeah.
in.
Wow.
Yeah, you could not walk in, or if you'd call it the same day, we push you back to the following weekend. It's insane. So extremely stressful. There is no parking. Pizza's late. Party rooms are fully booked.
Yeah.
So
No room for
any
error. There's no room for error.
exactly anything that goes wrong like tosses you over the edge. Your staff is like 18 years old.
Mhm.
They were great, but they're 18-year-olds, so sometimes they're
Right.
going to call in sick. They're unreliable. Um, Equipment failure sometimes, so it's extremely stressful.
Mhm.
And Andres is not like your typical LaserQuest GM in the sense that he's extremely skilled at marketing and he's
Okay.
extremely skilled at team building. Like he travels to other LaserQuest centers to
Yeah.
like just train the staff, right?
He came to
So
Brampton when we were there, when I was there.
right. So I'm shit at marketing. I'm not good at all at it. So we kind of had this deal in which he would bring in business and then I would run the center. So I would
Gotcha.
take care of operations. So you can only do this for so long in a center as busy as Montreal,
Yeah.
because you never have weekends. You're always working nights. You're always working Friday. It gets to you, right? You have basically not really any room to grow any social life.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a good time, and I made a fuck ton of money for
It's good. For being
however it
22
lasted.
or
So
whatever. Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah. The one thing that I
Um,
think
yep.
I was gonna say for me, the big takeaway that I had was obviously I worked at LQ for almost 5 years.
Yes.
The big thing that I think that I take with me that has helped me succeed in other avenues in business and stuff like that is just the public speaking. As weird as that
Right.
sounds, and just coming out of your shell and just
Yep.
it gives you this self confidence because the whole wow factor and always being on stage and stuff like that. I felt like for me that's something that that was the one thing that I took with me to everywhere else because similar to you, I was uh shy. Like I wasn't a kid that would go that would go up and talk to people or do anything like that. So LQ really taught me that as well.
Yeah, it's an added benefit definitely of
Hmm.
working there.
Hmm.
Also, I don't think I was a fit to work at LaserQuest ever. And I think like really Andres like kind of dragged it out of me because I remember like I got pulled at a managers conference. So newly promoted managers,
Yep.
they would pull all of them in North America and have like a week training session in Mississauga. And like
Yep.
people remember their one of the first introduction question is they're asking people, okay, so what's your favorite movie? And people are going like, oh, Patch Adams, like Finding Nemo, and like I'm like, oh, Requiem for a Dream is my favorite movie.
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw Requiem for a Dream, but it's a fucking depressing movie. It's like
You didn't say Blade?
no, late. I despise Blade, dude. It's just for the introduction. But anyway, like it wasn't really in me. And also, one thing I wanted to point out is joining Laser Quest is kind of joining a cult. Like
Yeah.
true, like they have this like wow and like this like oh we use this lingo and this thing that looking back now on I expected this was kind of my first um introduction to the corporate world.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe every company like runs like this. And then the company I work for like that is not like that at all.
No, it's
I
not.
got a sense of what the real world was. So it was kind of weird, but at the same time, it taught me so much that it's an overwhelmingly positive experience. Is all
Nice.
I can say.
Very nice. Good. All right, so we're going to change gears a little bit here, and we're going to jump into side tournaments.
Sure.
There's obviously a point in time where you were playing quite a bit of side tournaments. So I want
Yes.
to talk about, for somebody, you said that, well, I'll make this a two-part question. Let's answer the first
Sure.
one first. What would you say is your greatest side tournament win, or the side tournament win that you are the most proud of?
Um, I'll, okay, I think I'll give you two answers.
Okay.
One of them was so definitely I was touching on the fact that I think I played on one team that had players that are the Montreal players from like 1999 to 2005. Really,
Okay.
I was not stacking. I was not playing with. So I didn't really win that many tournaments. I think I won like two tournaments,
But you've won. This is
maybe.
this is a question all the way across because you've won a
Okay,
bunch. You've won a bunch now. Like I know you've won
yeah.
Vegas's. You've won a bunch of tournaments.
So
So this
what?
doesn't have to go pre 2005. This is
Okay,
now just your whole career. What's the one you're the most proud of?
so what I'm getting to is 2005. I was actually invited to play on a really stacked team, and the team was for Vegas.
Hmm.
Was Kyle, Action, Phoenix, and Clarkness.
I've never heard of
And
any of those guys.
yeah, Scrubs. Um, and obviously, like so, Phoenix from Rochester. I think he
Yeah,
lived in
yeah,
GV
yeah,
at that.
yeah.
That
No, he was Ryan's buddy, but yeah, he
yeah,
he was good. He was real good at that time. Yep.
he was a monster. So I remember him messaging me, and he's like, "Hey, all right, like, do you keep playing?" And I'm like, I haven't played in really a year at that point. He's
Yeah.
like, "Well, there's Vegas five man, and this is the team. Like, do you want to play?" And I'm like, "Sure, like, fuck,
Yeah.
let's do it, it's Vegas." Um, and everything about that trip was magical. In the
Nice.
sense that I remember I was stuck in Cleveland because I had a connecting flight in Cleveland, and I remember I'm in line because we missed our connection. And everybody in front of me is getting told like, "Oh, we'll put you on a flight Monday morning," and like it's Friday
Wow.
afternoon, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, ugh. And then I get there, and the girl goes like, "Oh, your flight is in like 2-3 hours, and you've been upgraded to first class." I'm like,
Hey.
Jesus
Okay.
Christ, I'll fucking take it.
Yeah.
So I get there. I meet my team at it was Luxor. I don't know how to say it in English. Luxor. It's a
Luxor.
big.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. So Action's mom had booked us like really really nice hotels, and like I've
Yeah.
never been to Vegas, so for me like at first class, I'm like this huge place, like the lights. I'm like holy shit. I'm playing from like members from like the elite at that point, like people that I've been looking up to.
Yep.
And then we get to the poker tables, and I sit down. I have like $35, and like everybody has like 200,
Yeah.
and I end up winning enough to pay everybody's entry fee to the tournament
No way.
that night. So I'm like, Jesus, like everything's going my way. And obviously we ended up dominating that tournament. We got the
Yeah,
bye.
I would bet. I would bet with that team. Yep.
We got the bye in prelims, and then in finals we played. I think we played your team. It was you, Blair, Daydream,
Oh,
Hocus Pocus, and 007. And then the third team was, decent players. And the
well,
first
four decent
team,
players anyway, but yeah.
the third team was, I think some team with like Cougar. Matt was on that team. Spam Hetfield was on that team. Anyway, but I remember we lost the second game by 2 points, but we won the two other ones. And the very last game of finals, this was supposed to be my last tournament ever because I don't expect to play any more tournaments after this.
Yeah.
And the last game in finals, no one's even looking at me. I think like everybody's trying to contain like the other players. I'm not playing a good pack, but I'm in my corner and I'm just like killing everybody. And I'm like, do these guys know it's my last tournament, so they're letting me win? It's legit a thought I had. I was like, really? And I come out of there. I'm first place. I have like 500 and something points. I'm like, Jesus. So everything went my way this weekend. It was an
Nice.
amazing experience.
Nice.
So this has to be like my proudest win. Although The other one is not a win, but I have to say the triple quest over Rockford was very fucking gratifying and
So
very rewarding.
you've now stolen my next question.
Sorry. Go ahead. What is your next question?
I was gonna ask, is the side tournament, or is that where you got yourself into the regional finals? I was gonna say, which one is greater? What is the big accomplishment for you when you look back on it?
Individually, I think the Vegas experience was so magical that like I can't like gloss over that one. But just the sense of satisfaction that you get doing it with your homegrown team and something you've poured your literal like blood, sweat, and tears over the years, like is a crown achievement. So I can't really pick between both, to be honest.
That's not an answer. You're gonna have to. You got to pick one.
I have to go with the triple quest with
good for you.
with the guys. I have to. Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. Not that there was, I've tried to block out that Vegas tournament. As soon as you started naming the roster, I was like, oh god.
You're like,
shit. Oh god. I know what's coming here. Okay, so you stopped playing for a little, like quite a while. I think there was like a reasonably long period where you stopped playing LQ.
Actually, there's one more tournament I played that year, 2005. So a few months later, Dave Exodus messages me and he's like, "You want to play SummerSlam?" And I'm like, "Well, last time I played was Vegas, and I didn't play like a year before that. Are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna play. The team's gonna be me, Blue Man, Voltage, and the Dodger."
That's a good team.
It is, but it's not at that point, except for maybe Dave. They're all like not B tier player because they're all extremely skilled players, but they're not
like
the
up
best.
And coming players, right?
Exactly, and they're not the best on their team. Like Richmond is like like VB. So, like Richmond and VB are like action, like Heil and Westland is like Bad Andy and like Force, extremely skilled players. So I'm like, okay, sure, we'll go, and we ended up winning that tournament. So it was kind of cool because I started stacking and then I played 2 tournaments and I win them both. I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing.
You probably beat me in the finals of that SummerSlam too. So
I don't remember the roster. No, I'm totally shitting with you. It was you, Blair, Corwin, Jerk, and Blue Flame. And
Jerk
then
and Blue Flame. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the third team was a team with Psycho and Ronan on it.
You're knocking off some pretty big guys there when you start talking. You're talking about those wins. You're talking about Blair and I coming in Vegas coming off of an NAC. Phoenix having 2 NACs. NRH and by that SummerSlam had won. Jerk's an NAC champ. Blair and Core. Like you're knocking off some heavy duty guys there for a guy who's not playing very often. That's got to feel pretty good.
But again, it does. But again, like it's not with any homegrown team, and I feel like the teams that I joined were kind of like built to win. You know what I mean? You get your very good share of role players and players who you just pack up and go and have a field day. So I was lucky enough that like people would be like, "Hey, come be part of the team," and I happened to fit perfectly in that team, which was cool.
Interesting. Okay, good. So then obviously we're gonna skip forward, now to kind of what's going on in the LQ world now. So obviously Montreal is kind of like the hotbed of everything that's going on from like an LQ standpoint. I don't know if the LQ community knows that or not. I talked about it a little bit on my podcast, but you guys have like 25, 30 active members. Talk to me a little bit about your role, in there as kind of the, I don't know, obviously, I don't know the intricacies of it, but I would assume that you're kind of like the mentor, or like the guy there. So talk to me a little bit about how the new dynamic works there.
So oddly enough, I'm not really. It's mostly Louis. It's mostly Phoenix. It started off like every time we would want to play a side tournament, like Phoenix, Martin, and I would go and play like a few games or like 3-4 games together, and that was it. That was a practice, right? And we kind of got sick and tired of that because I love those guys, but it's really hard to like keep playing against the same guys over and over. So actually, Phoenix was kind of like the driving force behind this, and also our staff. Our staff is absolutely great, but I'm going to touch on this in a minute. So Phoenix was kind of like the driving force, being like, he was like, hey, there's like apparently there's like good players or like people that know how to play, and it would be cool to like train them and like show them moves. And I was like, really, dude, I've done this like 15 years ago. I really don't want to have to go through all, like I have other shit like to do literally right now. But as we started like attending members nights, obviously you see someone doing something, you're like, hey, try this, like your kind of instinct takes over.
Yeah.
So my role is try to organize these people, like be like, oh well, if you go to Mississauga, like try and book hotels like in this area. The
Okay.
tower looks like this, so I kind of like help orient them in the world that is competitive laser tag. As in Phoenix takes care of more of the local stuff. Like he's the one that's like organizing like tournaments. I have to say, over the years, we've organized a few tournaments in Montreal with Justin's help, with Phoenix's
Yep. Yep.
help as well. It's kind of cool to have the backup of the staff at Laser Quest Montreal. They're really
Yeah.
committed and actively recruiting players and like being super accommodating. I remember the manager Rose hosting, like staying on a Sunday night on her own time and hosting like like a mixer for us,
It's
which
awesome.
is really really cool. Yeah. Um, so yeah, it really helps when you have the staff behind you.
Cool. All right. So that brings us kind of up to date. So we've kind of gone through the whole timeline on you as a player. How are we on time? What are we sitting at right now?
We're good. An hour and a half or so.
Not
Oh,
bad. Not bad.
also one other thing that I wanted to mention is between 2005 and kind of 2017 is when I won the most tournaments because what would happen is like I wouldn't play tag for a few years, and then Justin would call me and be like, "Hey, come and play this tournament with this ridiculously stacked team." Where literally I'd be like, "Okay, I'm just gonna take class pack, try not to go negative,
I'll
and
just
we're
go
gonna
hide on
win."
a ramp and you guys go win. Yep.
Pretty much. So Vegas, it happened in Vegas in 2010. It happened. Well, actually, I didn't do too bad. It happened in like Chicago. It happened Washington as well. So yeah, most of my trophy collection comes from like the Justin Stack era, sort of, where he would pull me and like
Yeah, but
come and play.
you play a role on those teams, right? I think you're selling yourself a
Yeah,
little bit short there. You're because you touched on it earlier when you talked about those teams were built to win, and I think that you fit into those teams in a specific role. So
but try and make it work. But
yeah,
it's easy to make it work when you have players of like the caliber that Justin Stacks with.
of course, yeah, of course.
Like it's a little bit easier to make it work.
All right, so we're gonna get into a staple of the tag talk conversations. So
Sure.
we're gonna do your top five, players list. So we'll do the top five all time, current, and prime. You can handle them in any way that you want. It's all
Oddly
yours.
enough, I didn't really put any thought into this.
I mean, we're gonna be freestyling it then, man.
Yeah. I kind of feel like I have to kind of put a personal touch and not
Yeah, of
pick the
course,
same
yeah.
fucking five players that everybody
No, it's
picks.
your list. It's your list, man. Go nuts with it.
But definitely top five of all time. You cannot have, um, you can't be on, like, you cannot not be on that list. So you would be on that top five list.
Okay.
Enemy obviously would be on that top five list.
Yep.
I would have to go with Ryan as well.
Okay.
Um, and I have to say this with basically, if I go a little bit more into detail, you would have to be on that list because like I've been at the forefront to witness your accomplishment over the years, right? Obviously, being from the North region,
Yep.
like
Yeah, there's
freaking
some favoritism and stuff there for sure.
yeah. But like freaking like regionals where you come out of there with like a average rank of 1.3 or like like stuff like that is absolutely insane. Same for Vince. I did not have the luxury of like seeing him play that much. I think I've played only one or two tournaments with him, and I
I
watched
think
him play
that's
at the
like
AC.
I think that's like sort of the to jump in. I think that's sort of the mystique about Vince is like he's
Yeah,
not around a lot, and then when he does show up,
he's insane. Yeah.
I mean, he's great. He's I had him in my top five. He's one of the greatest players ever. So I think I don't I'd always love to ask Vince if that's like part of the the mantra that he's trying to put out there. Is he like tries to make his appearances a little bit more rare than everybody else's?
Yeah. So Ryan would be my third,
Okay.
just because Ryan is Ryan. He's an absolute monster at Laser Quest. This is where it gets dicey. I can't really,
Dicey, eh?
yeah,
Unintended.
yeah, maybe I can't really, in good faith, put anybody from NRH, and not
Okay.
because I've like the player that I have had the most experience with on NRH is Blue Flame Andrea, and she absolutely destroys me. So
She's a good player. She's a
she's
good player.
fucking scary. But I can't really say like Sifumo or like Sector because I
Yep.
just haven't played them.
That's fair.
So they can't be in my top five all time just for that fact. So I would have to put Corwin, absolutely.
Okay.
Corin is amazing. He would have my fourth spot. And then I would have to put Justin. I would have to put Dice.
Wow. Okay.
Um, because, and I've been thinking about this every time I hear, top five players, I get that the height of Laser Quest or the peak of Laser Quest was like, 2001, 2002, 2003, and Justin wasn't around. But you can't win against somebody you don't play against. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
had Justin been around, I think he would have been just as competitive as he is. He is hands down the player who has won the most tournaments since 2006.
100%.
So for like 15 years.
The other
Uh,
thing about Justin, to jump in there,
yep.
is he was like you. He was never bad.
Right.
Justin came in like 2006, and he was pretty good in 2006, and then by 2007 he was damn good. Like, so
Right.
if he had started in like 98 or 99, he would have been good all the way along.
Yep.
All the way along.
Absolutely.
So yeah, totally justified answer.
And I think I picked like 3 Northern players there, so I
You picked
absolutely.
3 Canadian players,
Yeah,
not even
exactly.
just North.
Exactly. So what you said
Okay.
about me being fair and everything, like just went all out the window.
No, but it's all based on experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
to you, when you talk about, like, some of those guys, like you were saying, like NRH, it's just a name on a piece of paper, right? You've
Yeah.
never really played, you've never really played against them. So I mean, that's fair. What about your top 5 in their prime?
So Blair, this is the Blair category,
Mhm.
because I believe that no one ever or will ever reach the height that this guy had in his prime. He is absolutely insane.
Okay.
And like you said, it goes beyond just skill in the game, just like mentally, like just the understanding of the game. And as Blair does in pretty much every aspect of his life, right? He's that intense. Um, like I was having a conversation with him, and I think Blair he was kind of cut out to be like a professional athlete. Like had his interest been like hockey or like basketball or something,
Hmm.
like that, had he given himself to the level that he gave himself for Laser Quest, I
Yep.
think he could have made it. But yeah, definitely Blair.
Yep.
I would have to go with Ronan,
Yep.
Ronan
Great
Quest.
choice.
That speaks for itself. I would have to go with Bad Andy. Bad
Yep.
Andy is an amazing player. He's an absolute monster. I would have to go with Trixie,
Okay.
in the sense that I remember playing a tournament with him in Chicago,
Oh yeah, I
and,
remember that.
and Trixie on form is scary.
He's a
Like
great player.
Jesus, I think we played against Kenton in the playoffs. In the second game, he beat the Kenton team by himself. He scored like 800 points, and the Kenton team scored like 600.
Wow.
Yeah, he's absolutely insane. And the last one is going to be a bit controversial, but I'm going to have, again, this is a little bit my lack of experience playing teams from the South and West, but I'm going to have to go with the Force, with Steve.
Okay.
There was a time where Steve would role play on his team, but I remember the SummerSlam we won, actually. We played his team in playoffs, and we played his team we played his team in playoff, and he played consoles after. There was consoles at SummerSlam for some reason.
Okay.
And I remember Steve, like, he was in a team with like Hetfield, like Prophet, like old school players. And he stopped giving a shit. He was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take first pack and I'm gonna do my thing. I'm not gonna like, do the teamwork bullshit. And he won 6 games in a row. He won 3 games against us and 3 games against the consoles team.
Yep.
Steve was amazing, and I think obviously he was kind of a victim of his own success, in a sense that he was such a good role player that putting him on the got back would have been a waste.
Mm.
Like, that doesn't mean that he would not have like came in first, like, and absolutely perform on the got back. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think I'm gonna go with that. Yeah.
Good. All right. So then the top 5 currently.
Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna try not to name players that I've named.
Okay.
Because obviously all the players that I've named are candidates, or it would be pretty much all the players that I've named.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go with Wolverine.
Okay.
He's been really good for a certain amount of years. I like to think that it's all because of me that we have the Wolverine that we have now, because when I played a tournament with him in Washington in Potomac Mills, he was my 2-man partner, and we actually ended up winning that side tournament. And then after that,
You're
he won in
taking
his crew.
credit for Wolverine. Okay.
Absolutely, I created Wolverine. His skill is all because of me. Okay, he carried my ass majorly in that tournament, but whatever. But he's really good. He's definitely top notch right now. I would have to go with Phoenix. Phoenix has been on a tear. He's been amazing at tournaments. He's been like, coming in first place overall. and playing with him every week, he's good. There's
Yep.
obviously like you play against somebody, you get to pick on their flaws, or their flaws are more evident to you. But I
Yep.
mean, results speaks for themselves. He's that good of a player. I would have to go with Yoda. Yoda has been
Okay.
really good. He's
Yep.
stepped up his game lately. He's scary good. Um,
He is. It's only
it's
three. You got two
it's
more, man.
it's hard not to include Andrea Blue Flame in any of
Yep.
these lists because she'd arguably be a contender for all three, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So obviously, I think I'm going to put her in there. And then the fifth one, I would like to give to Voltage, but my last experience with him is he was on my team actually in Washington, so I don't think I'm going to go that way.
Okay.
And I don't want to name another Canadian again. Uh, so I think I'm going to go with Scooby
Scooby.
from
Okay.
Mesa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scooby is a monster of a player, and every time there's a tournament, it sucks because he like nowadays the scene is a little bit more dead, or he doesn't really travel to like northern tournaments. But whenever there's like a western tournament, he's consistently up there, and he's a fantastic player.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, your closest bond in LQ. Who are you kind of the closest with because of LQ?
So does that have to be like in the center, or can it be outside of the center?
Outside, I
Uh,
mean, like personally, like who would you say is your closest friend from laser tag?
um, so if I'll say both. I'll say in Montreal and outside of Montreal. Outside of Montreal, it would have to be Justin.
Yep.
Just for the fact that I've lived in Toronto for a couple of years there, and I got to like really know him as a person,
Mhm.
and like he also brought me back from the dead. Like he got me to playing Laser Quest again, and like
Yeah.
practice him and take it seriously. And then in Montreal, I would have to say Max Payne.
Okay.
He's the guy that still to this day like I speak the most with. He's like one of my best friends.
Yep.
Um, and that friendship was 100% created out of tag, like initiated out of tag. There's people that I've no longer that I'm maybe as close as I am to Max, like Too Short, like he's my
Yep.
childhood friend, like we went to primary school together. So and like
I did not know that.
Ghostface, yeah, oh yeah, we go back. But yeah, I would have to say Max Payne. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And who would you say would be your LQ role model? I think we all kind of had some sort of person that made a big difference on our game,
Yes.
either from like how we play or our mentality or something like that. Who is yours?
So hands down, it would have to be Exodus, Dave
Okay.
from Westland. He was the first player that like I saw and that I was like, holy shit, I want to get that good. But he was also one of the first player that like actively. I don't know if you know, but Dave kind of likes to talk a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You start talking to him, and like you just sign a contract for the like next few hours. But he was one of kind of the first ones from outside of Montreal to kind of reach out and like
Yeah.
give us advice, talk to us about tag, kind of include us, and like really show me a few pointers way back in the days, like super early on during the game. And I remember um, this happened. I think it was in 2003, and there was a mix-up. He was playing a SummerSlam, and then I think there was a mix-up with the schedule where his team proceed, but for some reason they had to play like one of the top, like the second or the third seed, like in playoffs.
Okay.
And then like Dave didn't give a shit. He was like, well, if I can beat them now, like even though this was clearly wrong and he wasn't supposed to face that team until finals, it was like if I can beat them now, I won't beat them in the finals. So it's okay,
Yep.
bring it on. I don't care.
Yep.
And I was like, that's really fucking cool. And that level of confidence and that level of sportsmanship in a way, because you don't give a fuck the conditions. You'll play the hand that you're dealt,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna try your hardest to win. I thought that was really cool.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so those are all of the questions that I gave you in advance. We're going to get to some of the surprise
Oh
questions that
shit!
I have prepared for you now. So,
All
you
right, bring it
touched
on.
we touched on you as a marshal, and let's say at the year's 2005, Montreal does not become the crazy busy center that it does, and you are named the replacement for, I guess at that time it would have been Jeff Thurwell. So you're named
Right.
as the new guy who is in charge of NACs. What changes do you make?
So the biggest, I don't have a specific change, but I have definitely a change in mentality. So by that point, you have players that have been playing Laser Quest for literally a decade, competitive Laser Quest.
Okay.
Any players that attend those NECs from like Houston, like Brampton, Phoenix, they know a whole lot about the game, and they are your customers. So the change in the mentality from the corporate would be listen to them.
Okay.
If all the captains agree on something, it is their tournament. Implement that change. Be a little bit more flexible in the sense that you don't need to enforce the rule just because, like I feel like sometimes rules were enforced because they are in the book, not because they are logic.
Okay.
Like if a player that is from like Houston like wants to play on Wichita because Wichita is like and obviously they're not stacking, they're not doing this to win, they're just doing this because Wichita is short a player. Let it happen, like who cares if it
Right.
doesn't establish a precedent. So just be a lot more mindful of what your customers want and go along with it. I think that change in philosophy and the fact that they would have been a little bit more open would have gone a long way into she's going crazy there.
Yeah. Brooklyn, stop.
So that would have been
Sorry, man.
no worries. That would have gone a long way into like ensuring longevity. And also more of me. There was a bunch of players I think that went on to have like management position in in Laser Quest. Try and harness that passion that players have and make these people the knack marshals, make these people a little bit more involved. I know
Okay.
they tried to do this and then it gets dicey because it's a question of resource, right? All of these
Yeah.
things cost money.
Yep.
And I think the company was running NEC essentially at a loss, right?
Oh, for sure. 100% it was a loss.
So I kind of understand and Laser Quest, as we see now with all of the centers closing and stuff, it's not a money machine. It doesn't
No.
it's profitable, but not that much. So I'm not saying that like, oh, I would have been able to like fix everything, but definitely try to move the philosophy more like this way.
Okay. Excellent. Good answers. Good answers. Let me just consult my list here to see what the next question
Sure.
was. So, in your opinion, what do you think caused the death of competitive Laser Quest?
Just that the death of competitive or the death of NEC?
Let's say the death of the death of NEC.
Okay. I think there's multiple factors there. Obviously, people grow older, lose interest. Participation is a big issue, and just the fact that it's not really something that's viable financially. And I think it could have been viable if we would have gone the way of like sponsorship, broadcast, opening this very cool thing to the rest of the world. Yeah, the first time that you see competitive Laser Quest, you're like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Like, flying around and everything. But it's flashy enough that there would have been an interest for it. And again, the philosophy of the company was like, oh, we don't want to show the arena, like we don't want anyone to film in the arena. We don't want to like give out our secrets, but that's very old school. And it's easy to see like with the lens of like 2020 where now like everything is like streamed and everything is open. But I think that could have been the salvation and it was not implemented. Just for the fact that I think also the company's immediate revenue model is really more really more directed towards like birthday parties, corporate events. It would have been possible to do something with membership and NAC, but it would have required like a major shift in philosophy and major time and money investment.
Okay. Next question would be, which player out of Montreal do you think had the greatest potential but never lived up to it?
Ooh, good question. It's definitely not Sitlord because I feel like he lived up to it. Too Short never gave a fuck, and he was a good player too.
He was.
But he
never.
He just wanted to like show up and like have fun and not really. I would have to say Ghostface. Although he had some really good performance, I guess the timing was never really right because he hit his peak in 2003, where in regionals he got something like 14th on third pack, and then afterwards he kind of carried. He tried to bring in 2014, he tried to bring in 2015, but at that time, most of the good players had quit. But but he was really good. Like he could have been elite status, but the timing was really shitty.
Okay.
And the same could be said for Reinhardt. Although Reinhardt became good, like now, Reinhardt was like becoming or like morphed into a really good player around 2004. So after we were done with team building and NAC and stuff like that. So that kind of sucked for him.
Okay. One player that you always wanted to play with but never had the chance to.
I've been fortunate. I've played with, oddly enough, a lot of good players. Trying to think. Probably Nick.
Nick as in Lollipop?
Yes, exactly. Lollipop, just because after listening to his podcast and chatting with him, he opened my eyes to some stuff that I was not even cognizant that was part of Laser Quest world. And I think it would have been, had I had a chance to play with Nick like in 2001. Like I know he wasn't even active, but like had his level of insight early on in my career, I think it would have like drastically changed how I played Laser Quest or how I approached it.
He definitely has a lot of insights into it, and he has strong opinions on the way the game should be played and everything like that. So having played numerous tournaments with Nick, I can definitely tell you, he has a mind for the game like very few people have, and very few people that play at that level. Like one thing that I find a lot is when you get to like a player that's very elite. Sometimes the most elite players don't have a great understanding of the game and how it functions around them and stuff like that. Nick was not an example of that. He was a guy who was very good, very elite. One of the best players ever, but had a mind for the strategy, understood the whole team aspect, understood the whole game beyond just how to go in there and score points or something like that. So it's a great answer. Next question that I've got is, you were, at least in my opinion, probably one of, if not like the most versatile players to play laser tag. You talked about a little bit about some of your performances on top packs. You also talked about how for a number of years you took bad packs. How were you able to juggle those two different responsibilities? And I felt like at sometimes it was a drop of a hat. I could feel, I can remember playing side tournaments against you, and one game you were on a pack that barely functioned, and then the next game I couldn't tag you. So how do you get into that mentality of just being able to, on a dime, be able to switch directions and just totally change your play style?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's all a question of mentality. If you have a bad pack, you know exactly how to cut the ego out of the game that you're about to play, because your role is to maximize what that pack can do. It doesn't matter if like this player you've never heard of like tags you 5 times in a row. You have to find a way to make it work, right? And the opposite is true. Like if you have as you well know, if you have a god pack, then your role changes drastically. So I think it's just a matter of cutting. For me, it was always a matter of cutting the ego out of it and just being like, okay, let's try and maximize what this pack can do, because that's what my team needs to do. So, and I've always been very shitty at solo tournaments. I think I've won 2 tryouts and that was it, because my drive was always, let's make it happen for the team
first. Okay, good.
That's what fueled it.
I think that I'm going to follow up to that a little bit, because that's one of the issues that a lot of players really, really have trouble with. You find I know that we, like myself personally, it took me, a number of years to really kind of figure out how to play a bad pack. And, I think about the years in Brampton and the years in Toronto East and stuff like that, where we had, players that weren't, some of our top players that weren't playing, and we had to move guys up in packs and they struggled and stuff like that. What do you think made you be successful at being able to, have the balance between the two and not get locked into, he's a bad pack player, he's a good pack player, whatever?
Just the fact that I could find success with both. Circumstances have made it so that I would have a chance to play either, like bad packs when I was on ridiculously stacked teams, or even self-inflicted in the early days of Montreal regionals, or my team just being like, oh, go have this first pack and score huge. So just experience and the fact that I was finding success with both was motivating in itself.
Okay. So you were going to be on the Team Canada for Denver, NAC 2020.
Are we supposed to reveal this?
Whatever. I'm revealing it now. That's
Fair enough.
fine. You were on the team for sure. What was the outcome of Denver
Oh,
if it
we're
had
gonna
happened?
fucking kill everybody. Are you kidding? Jesus. Like I've never been on a team that good and that stacked. And I felt that again that team was built to win. Like positional players, like people who excel at their roles, like at every level, we would have absolutely crushed. And we were before COVID hit, we were practicing really hard with that intent. Yeah, like getting into games and like running drills with like Phoenix, like Martin, being like, okay, you do this, you try and do this game, and finding success with it. So yeah, it would not have been close, not even.
Okay. How would you have performed individually?
I don't think I would have like had a super good pack, but I would have found a way. Like I was practicing in Montreal, like disappearing, like nobody would see me, and I would come out of there like having won the game with the fucking like shittiest pack in the maze that I would take on purpose, and I'd be like, give me this, and then like somebody would play it and like come out of there like, this is a piece of garbage. It'd be like, okay, write it down. This is mine for next game. No, it would have been like really really fun to like get back in there after, like as I said, the all of the latest tournaments that I've played were all like tournaments where I'd go and like play one or two games in Montreal in preparation for the tournament, just to remember what a trigger feels like.
Yep. Yep.
It would have been really really interesting to see what I could have done in a team environment with like a year of weekly practice under my belt. That would have
Okay.
been really cool. Yeah.
Good. Good. That's everything that I had from a question standpoint, Alex. You did a great job. Do you have any closing comments or anything that you'd like to say to everybody out there?
No, like thank you very much, you personally, for doing this. It feels very different to be the guest and to have a chance to also like share my perspective. I really hope that people are enjoying the content that we're putting it out, even if they're not. Like at the end of the day, really, I'm doing this because like it's a lot of fun, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, just being on the other end of the spectrum and having a chance to share my personal experience with tag. Like I'm not one of the big names, like by all means. Like I've won like a few tournaments here and there, and for a number of years I was not active within the community because I was so busy with just like like working at Laser Quest.
Hmm.
But it feels really nice to like reminisce and like talk about my experience. And thank you so much for preparing this and hosting this.
So I lied. I do actually have one more question.
Sure, sure.
I just wanted to get the closing comment in before, and I'm curious to get your take on this one. But in my opinion, Alex, you were basically on the trajectory to be considered as good as some of the best players to come out of the North, specifically Corwin Blair, myself. Looking back on it now, do you regret taking the corporate route and taking the position?
I can't because um, like Laser Quest has brought me places out of my comfort zone and taught me life lessons that I don't know. I think I would have struggled probably to learn without. And it also brought me to move to Toronto, which was an amazing experience.
Hmm.
In a sense that when I moved to Toronto, like while I was there, I had the chance to like go to World Challenge, to go to France, to go to
Yep.
England, like make a bunch of money. So I can't like I wish that like in an alternate world I would have been able to like keep on playing and to this day like like be one of the greats, but like you can't. You make your path in life and you don't
Yeah.
regret it, right?
Yeah.
So I
I've
can't, but at the same time sometimes it keeps me up at night. I'm not gonna lie.
I've always wondered about that because I felt like it was a choice that you made. You were right there. You were right there. So
Yeah.
I've always wondered. I've always wondered about that. So that's everything I have. I think I want to thank everybody that tuned in and checked out this episode of Tag Talk. It was really cool. I'm honored to have been able to sit down and speak with you. I'm glad that you got to share your story. I want to thank you for everything that you're doing for the community and all the effort and everything like that you've put into it. And further than that, just thanks for the guy that you are. You're a great guy. You're a great ambassador for this game. And I couldn't be happier that I got to play a small part in you at least getting to share your story with the world.
Thank you, sir.
All right, man.
Thank you, guys.